SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Welcome in, everybody, on this Tuesday edition of the Rebel Report podcast. Glad that you are with me, as you always are, talking Ole Miss LSU in court. Possibly ends up in court. So we will talk about that on this edition of the show. As if this game needed any more drama, as if we did not talk about it enough, as if there wasn't enough spice, we get a little bit more. Although, I'll be honest with you guys, I think any rational person looks at this as a pretty cut and dry situation. Now, in the sports media space, and especially the Twitter burnerverse, there's no such thing as rationality or looking at it through a clear lens. But if you're looking at this through a clear lens, it is a pretty cut and dry situation. There really shouldn't be any spice at all. There is, as you can imagine. So we'll talk about that on this edition of the show. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Just search Rebel Report and subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave a rating and a review. Again, wherever you get your podcasts, also right here on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I would appreciate that here as well. This edition of the show, before we get into the, what we got to get into, the show is brought to you by Scruggs Farm Lawn and Garden in Saltillo, Mississippi. That is where they are located. Anywhere in Mississippi, though, is worth the trip to go to Scruggs. They've got anything you need under one gigantic roof for your hunting property, your land, your farm, your garden, your backyard, inside of your home, appliances, home improvement, great clothes and boot selection, fishing even, the cheapest beer in town, and your John Deere, America's tractor. Been that way for a long time. They've got 0% financing on all of these things. Commercial motors, 0%. Compact tractors, 0%. 5 Series tractors, 0%. Zero-turn mowers, you guessed it, 0%. All of that 0% runs through August 4th, so you got a little bit of time to get there. Also, a Gator at 1.9%. Unbelievable financing and unbelievable people at Scruggs that will take care of you because they understand you better than anybody else could. Go by and see them and tell them that it was me that sent you there. All right, you guys have seen the story by now, but just to, lay out all of the reporting and everything to get to the commentary part of it. Way back when, it feels like forever now, it's only been about 6 months ago, when 2 players in particular decided at the end of the cycle, to follow Lane Kiffin to LSU. Prince Will, Umanmielen, and Devin Harper. When they decided to transfer to LSU, it was very publicly reported and widely known that they had signed revenue-sharing contracts with Ole Miss. The reason that TJ Daugherty is not a part of this, the reason that Winston Watkins is not a part of this, they did not. They did not have a new contract, a 1-year revenue-sharing agreement with Ole Miss. I guess some of them now are multi-year, but still. They did not sign one. So they were free to transfer to Ole Miss from Ole Miss without having to pay a buyout back to Ole Miss because they did not have a revenue-sharing contract, a new one, signed. Devin Harper and Prince Will did. And again, it was widely reported that those buyouts were real. And those buyouts had a due date. Everybody understood it at the time. There is a 0% chance, and I mean 0. This is, commentary, I guess, but there is a 0% chance that those players were not told by LSU, if you transfer, don't worry about the buyout. We'll take care of the buyout if you transfer. There is a 0% chance that Devin Harper and Prince Will Umanmielen transferred to LSU. 0% chance that they transferred to LSU believing that they were going to be on the hook for the buyout money. 0. But that happened. And the expectation was Ole Miss was going to get that buyout money this summer, And it's just the goings on in college sports. It happens. Ole Miss paid buyouts for players that transferred to Ole Miss in the same portal cycle. They have paid those. It is a thing that other programs do. If you have a rev share agreement, buyouts come with it. You pay the buyout, you move on. That's how it works. Except for in this case. So, reading from the Clarion Ledger, Ole Miss football has been waiting on buyout payments from LSU football players Prince Will Umanmiele and Devin Harper for approximately 6 months, according to Keith Carter. In an interview with the Clarion Ledger, he said, quote, talking about the possibility of a legal avenue, going to court possibly, being one of the avenues that they would take to make sure that they get the money, about 7 figures, that is owed to Ole Miss. Keith Carter said, quote, that would be an option, going and asking a court to get that money for you. Contracts are with the players. LSU could pay that on behalf of the players. So we're kind of exploring all of that right now. Here's more from Keith Carter. These are the kind that, having signed a brand new rev share contract basically a week or two before wanting to leave, those are the kind that put you in a bind, especially there in the portal cycle. Those two, we are going to continue to figure out how to collect. We feel like, based on the contract, we deserve to collect. So that is Keith Carter. So there's been a lot of reaction, and what I'm just learning more and more every day is I love the use of Twitter. I love the use of YouTube. Now, how I get paid is through the radio show, Sports Talk Mississippi, statewide, 12 stations, statewide in Mississippi, SuperTalk platform. It's great. Hey, Dad and I, we have fun. I would encourage you guys to check it out if you don't. That's what makes the money. That's how I pay my bills, is through the radio show. This podcast does very well on the audio side for sure. And we've got some sponsors, and we're doing great things with the podcast as well. I like the YouTube stream. I like using social media. I like the presenting commentary and reading commentary. Specifically, Twitter's kind of my platform of choice. But days like today, even people that forget the burner accounts, not the burnerverse, although that's filled with morons, but the people that have platforms, that have shows, that it's becoming increasingly radical. Maybe is that the right word? I don't know. When it comes to a topic like this one, genuinely, in a way, surprised at how unable to understand the simplicity of this situation. These are legal adults, professional football players, because that is what they are, that knowingly signed, legally, financially binding contracts with the institution, very similar to a coach. As you guys know, although there's a media member in this state that gets this confused at times, apparently, a financial aid agreement does not bind player to school, just school to player, like the Luke Farrelly situation, it seems. NIL deals do not bind the player to the school, but rev share agreements are direct payments from the school to the player. There are agents that try actually to not have their players sign rev share deals, or at least try to negotiate a small or non-existent buyout, similar to what Jimmy Sexton does with all of his clients, but they still have them. So when Lane Kiffin goes to LSU, he has got a buyout that is owed back to Ole Miss. That is, standard practice in college football. We have those now in the player space as well. You guys saw it with Damon Williams. He wanted to transfer from Washington, but he had a binding contract, and so he had to stay. Prince Will and Devin Harper could obviously transfer, but they knowingly signed a contract with buyout language that says if they transfer, that's part of their contract. They were informed when they transferred that this would happen. It was very publicly known when it happened that, yes, they transferred, but LSU / the player is going to owe Ole Miss buyout money. It is a widely understood thing. And if you are a legal adult and you sign a contract, you need to abide by the terms of the contract. I don't understand. I really, for the life of me, have tried my hardest to see the other side of this, to see why people would argue against Ole Miss wanting to collect $1 million. There's $1 million that they are owed. And there are people, not many, but there are people that think that Ole Miss should not try to get that money. And I cannot, for the life of me, come to a rational, well-reasoned, well-thought-out reason for why, or explanation, a well-reasoned, well-thought-out explanation for why Keith Carter and Ole Miss should not do what they need to do to get that money. Even if $1 million is not even 1% of their athletic budget, it is still $1 million. That $1 million can go buy 2 linebackers. That $1 million can go pay a great offensive line coach, or that $1 million can fund the entire golf team's coaching staff finances for 2 years. That's real money. And in an era where everybody, and I mean everybody, is looking for every possible way to get as much money as they possibly can to make sure that they can keep up with the expenses and rev sharing and all the things that are happening, you cannot, in good faith, tell me that Ole Miss should just let that money just disappear that is owed to them. I've tried to think about it from the other side, but the only thing that I can really get to is Ole Miss bad, LSU good. That's the only thing I can get to that explains it. Because for a lot of reasons. The thing that I find most hysterical is the insinuation that it is petty on Ole Miss's part to want that money. I saw somebody on X make that argument that it was petty that Ole Miss wants the money owed to them, $1 million via contract. I'm here to tell you that there is only one corner of the country that is looking at this situation and thinking that Ole Miss is in the wrong for wanting a buyout enforced. We have years now of college football discourse where people are begging for rules and regulations and structure, begging for it. And the second they see that structure, the possibility of the smallest bit of structure, they want to gaslight you into thinking that the enforcement of that is wrong. So that doesn't make sense to me either. And then you've got the insinuation that, well, if you're broke, just say you're broke, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is admitting they're broke by wanting this money. If $1 million is such an insignificant amount of money, why is it so difficult to pay? That is more of the question that I have, quite frankly. The question that I have is not, why does Ole Miss want this money? It's $1 million. 2 players followed Lane Kiffin to LSU, owe them buyouts. You collect on that money, and you do what you need to do to collect on that money. Regardless of who it is. South Carolina collected on their money from Ole Miss for a transfer player. They should have. People today threw the Luke Ferrelli example out there. Well, what's the difference between this and Luke Ferrelli? Well, Luke Ferrelli did not have a signed rev share agreement with Clemson. But if he did, I would tell you that Ole Miss should pay that in full. If they were playing hardball with South Carolina over that contract, I would sit here and tell you that they need to pay it in full. Contracts are contracts. You're a legal adult. You sign a legally binding contract. You should pay it. That principle applies to players that Ole Miss signs and players that Ole Miss loses as well. The real question is not why Ole Miss wants the money. There's a lot of reasons for that. The real question is, why haven't they gotten it yet? If it is such an insignificant amount of money, then why is it so difficult to pay it? There is a 100% chance, again, like I said earlier, there is a 100% chance that these two players were told by LSU or somebody with LSU's interests in mind that if they transferred, the buyouts would be taken care of. In one way or another, there is a 100% chance that the players did not think that they would be on the hook for this money. So if it's nothing, why has it not been paid? If it's insignificant, why has it not been paid? Do you think that you don't have to pay it? You knew going into it, and I know that based on conversations that were had with Ole Miss players that did not leave, that was part of the pitch, is if you have a buyout, we'll take care of it. That was part of the pitch. Don't worry about your buyout. We've got you. I get that. Hate the game, not the player. If you were tampering, which again, hate the game, not the player. That's what you have to do. In your negotiations, I mean, if Dabo Swinney's to be believed and Pete Golding said to Luke Ferrelli, do you have a buyout? What is it? I'll pay it. That's what you got to do. If Lane Kiffin and people at LSU were telling Ole Miss players, I'll pay your buyout, transfer. That is what you have to do to get players. Is it slimy? Of course, but college sports is slimy. That's not the issue. It's not the problem at all. But why now are the players still on the hook for it? Why haven't you paid it? Mitt Winter pointed out on Twitter earlier today, he's a NIL, he's not a NIL lawyer like the bad ones out there. He is more of just a legal expert. He's at Winter Sports Law on Twitter. He's an attorney, and he deals a lot in the NIL space. I forgot about this part of it. Under the current NCAA rules, player contract buyouts are that the school pays count against the school's revenue sharing cap. Is that part of this? I don't know that answer. Somebody that covers LSU may know that. Maybe that's the reason why they haven't paid it yet, is because they don't have the cap space in order to do it. I don't know that answer. I do know that when you tell me that it's an insignificant amount of money and Ole Miss is petty for wanting it, and you say that Ole Miss is broke for wanting it, wouldn't not paying it be an indicator of the accusations that you are throwing in the other direction? If you're flushed with cash, if you have all this money and just loads and loads of cash, where $1 million is so insignificant, why are you putting your players in this situation where they could possibly be dealing with the legal situation because they have not paid a contract that they signed? What are you waiting for? I don't know that answer. But when you have a bring the top 40 boosters to the governor's mansion to have definitely not a fundraising meeting, and then a week later, you've got unpaid buyout money out there, it does kind of raise red flags, doesn't it? It should. You should ask questions. Why haven't they paid this? If you're somebody that covers LSU anyway. And not because, I don't feel like it, just different 4D chess. No, you're not playing 4D chess when you allow your players to get in the middle of a situation like this. So, interesting stuff. I know you guys got some comments on it. The saga never ends. But again, I think the not online people, we had a lot of State fans text into the radio show today even and say things like, I'm a State fan. I hate Ole Miss, but contracts are contracts. College football needs this to be the precedent that is established. If Ole Miss does not receive this money, well, then it's open season on Ole Miss's roster, regardless if the players are signed or not. It doesn't matter because they won't enforce their contracts. If revenue sharing contracts are not binding in any way, shape, or form, then the one semblance of protection that these schools have disappears. You don't want the precedent that not recouping this money would set. You don't want that if you're a college football fan. And ironically enough, a lot of Mississippi State fans agreed with that sentiment today. You have a contract. You signed a contract. You knew the terms of that contract. You were not surprised at all that a buyout was in there because you agreed to it. You've known for months that there was one. If it's not paid, do you think it was just going to go away? No, it's not. And, pay up and it goes away. I'm surprised LSU has allowed their players to get in a situation like this. I am surprised by that, especially considering it's a place that has unlimited funds right now. There's money everywhere. So you would think that they would make sure that this would go away rather quickly. So maybe it's an accounting error or something. I don't know. Podcast is brought to you in part by Logan Smith Shelter Insurance, 601-823-3500, 601-823-3500. Auto, home, life, or insurance for your business. Logan Smith has you covered and will take care of you anywhere in the state of Mississippi for auto, home, life, or business insurance. Tell him that I sent you and he will take care of you. 601-823-3500. Logan Smith at Shelter. Well, he's got you covered. Auto, home, life, or business insurance. Also, Priority One Bank. They make you their priority every day. 16 locations in Mississippi. There's likely one near you. Local loan servicing and decision-making, so you don't need to talk to somebody out of state or on the phone. It's somebody you sit down with face-to-face because it's in the name. It's what they do. They make you their priority. Priority One Bank. And also Advantage Business Systems, absms.com. All right. Oh, first comment. But Matt Moscona said it was petty. I like Matt. I know you guys get frustrated when I say that. The radio show audience says that. He actually gave me some pretty incredible advice a couple years ago that it took me a while to actually listen to. And I'm glad that I did. Spent time around him in person. I like him personally. I don't know what he said about this. I don't know. I don't understand the petty thing. While it's petty to want to collect $1 million from two players that left you for an inter-conference rival at the final buzzer of the transfer portal, if Whit Weeks would have hit the portal at the last minute a week after signing a revenue sharing contract, if he'd have gone to Ole Miss, you don't think that the same people calling it petty would not be, loading up and making sure that Ole Miss paid them the money that they were owed after something like that? Of course they would. It's $1 million, man. It's not nothing. It is not petty to want contracts to be enforced at all. Number one, it held up money that could have been used elsewhere, even if temporarily. Number two, they thought they had the position covered and they weren't looking to fill it, even if temporarily. Number three, if you don't seek reparations, it tells other players they can do the same thing. Exactly. And that's the most important part. That's the final part right there is if revenue sharing contracts are not enforceable, there is literally nothing that is stopping anything from happening in college sports anymore. This is the one thing that schools can do that are binding. It's the one thing that they can do. And if that becomes null and void, then an already chaotic sport, it just becomes ruthless. How do you think this makes Ole Miss look nationally? I think nationally, nobody cares. This idea that it's going to hurt them in recruiting, you're going to have to show me your work on that. Oh, this will hurt recruiting. What do you tell? What does this say to a recruit? Okay. If you transfer to Ole Miss and you sign a legally binding contract, and a week later you try to enter the portal at the last minute, they're going to try to enforce that contract. So don't go there. I mean, think about that for a second. Hey, player, you don't want to go to Ole Miss because when you want to leave Ole Miss, you're going to have to. That makes no sense. These are guys that signed contracts and a week later left. The idea that this is going to hurt in recruiting, that the contracts that you sign are enforced, is nuts. Hey, here, come to my school where we don't enforce our contracts. So you can sign with us and you can leave, man. So come with us. We're so much better because you can leave whenever you feel like it. That's not going to hurt at all. It's meaningless. The amount of players that are going to sign a deal like this and then leave are minuscule. That would want to do that are minuscule. These guys sign 1-year deals. So unless you want a roster full of players that are going to sign a deal and then leave a week later, you're going to be fine. It doesn't impact it. Something like this will not impact recruiting at all. Not at all. You're really going to have to show me your work on that. Oh, it's a bad look to enforce a contract. How? How is it a bad look other than you like LSU and you don't like Ole Miss? Explain it further. Explain it further than just it's a bad look. Give me nuance, detail. Give me something that is not me bad or me good, you bad. Principal and Devin should have got it in writing that LSU would pay the buyout if that's a possibility. Again, I'm just surprised a place that is so flush with cash, that has so much money, is leaving this hanging out there for such an insignificant amount. Again, Ole Miss is poor. Ole Miss is poor and broke. They've got no money. So they need $1 million. But a place like LSU, they don't need $1 million. It's nothing. It's chump change. Poor people need that. We can find a booster and pay that tomorrow. What are you waiting on then? Would it be possible that the athletics department that is on the verge of bringing in private equity doesn't have a spare $1 million lying around? No, that's impossible. They're flush with cash. Money everywhere. Money everywhere. And again, you got to, I'm being sarcastic. I'm not being sarcastic anymore. The midwinter thing, the reminder that under NCAA rules, buyouts impact your rev share cap. I have not seen anything to the contrary. So this could be nothing. It could be something. But I do wonder if they, in effect, don't have the cap space to pay it. That maybe they're having to deal with the NCAA here. I don't know. But you thought it would be paid by now. You know, it's crazy. You just thought about the Big 12 took a terrible deal from Monster Energy. Oh, it was horrendous. Awful. UNLV got double for their jersey patch that the Big 12 got for jersey patch, field logos, and naming rights of the conference. UNLV got double what Baylor's going to get for selling that space. You notice that LSU media, grasping at straws, so like they're the victims anytime Ole Miss gets brought up. Not everybody today. I did notice there were some clips out there of Baton Rouge-based radio guys basically saying, I mean, if they had contracts with buyouts, you know, you signed them knowing that was going to be the case, so you got to kind of pay it. That's how contracts work. So not all of them, but that's the thing that I can't wrap my mind around. Like, all sarcasm and all stuff aside, like I said before, I can't figure out what a good counter argument to you signed a contract with a buyout, you must pay the buyout is. What's a good counter argument besides you bad, me good? There isn't one. Everybody that is owed a substantial amount of money would do what's necessary in order to get said money. It's a total nonsense talking point. The reaction and everything today, makes me. I'm not going to do the questions the future of the industry thing, but it's just hard to look at the way this was reacted to, and we're just so irrational. The college football rivalry reaction to things is so incredibly irrational. Feel the same way about Chaz Coleman at Tennessee. He should have to give back whatever Tennessee has paid him thus far. Just your opinion? This is from an LSU fan from Alpha Shane here. Ole Miss is owed the money and will get it. I think LSU wants Ole Miss to initiate legal action against the players. They can then use it when recruiting. But again, don't go there, because when you leave a week later, you're going to have to pay a buyout on your contract. How effective can that pitch actually be? How effective? And it can be turned against you so quickly. Here's how it gets turned against you. This is so easy. Hold on. You want to transfer to LSU that tells you, that convinces you to get in the portal, and when you do, they're not going to pay the buyout that they told you was covered? When you enter the portal, you were under the impression that that was going to get taken care of. Now it's not taken care of. So you think that this is something that LSU can use against Ole Miss in recruiting, but I'm not an attorney. I did talk to 1 and 2 agents today, and I kind of feel like getting promised something. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm looking at this through a lens. You can call me crazy. I feel like we convinced you to get in the portal, told you we'd cover your buyout, and then not covering the buyout is worse than if you sign a contract and then leave a week later, you're going to have to pay your buyout. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not thinking clearly. One of those sounds worse than the other. We're going to talk you into entering the portal and we're not going to help you pay your buyout later on thing is worse. You've heard a Big Ten podcast guy who's been covering realignment say that he hears that they will take Florida State and Miami. He thinks the SEC takes UNC, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. You buy it? I do not buy the NC State and Virginia Tech component of that. I do not buy that. I do not. I don't think you're going to get a typical round of conference realignment. I think the next thing that's going to happen is a breakaway. And then maybe it kind of looks like that, but I think breakaway happens first. Kevin is being petty and not letting LSU pay the buyouts because it's Ole Miss 100%. Well, if that's the case, then putting your players in this situation is odd. I don't know why you would do that. I really don't. That's the part I don't understand. Why would you even possibly consider opening up your own players to dealing with something like this? And yes, I know. These guys are professional athletes now, which, by the way, I've been very consistent on this. They are professional athletes. They need to be treated and scrutinized like them. If Trinidad Chambliss has a 3-interception game this season, you should react to it the same way you do if Dak Prescott does, quarterback of the Cowboys. Tyler Shuck does, quarterback of the Saints. Trinidad's making more money than the quarterback of the Saints this year. That's a true statement. So these guys wanted to be pros. You get treated like pros. I'm sick of I saw a lot of that. And again, so it's so dishonest. Look at them picking on college kids. They're not college kids. They're professional athletes. That is what they are. So you have to deal with this kind of stuff as a professional athlete. If Trinidad has a really bad game and he throws 3 picks and costs Ole Miss a game, sorry, he doesn't get treated with kid gloves anymore. Not by me. That's not how this works anymore with what they're getting paid now. They deserve much more scrutiny. That's why I've never understood why people are unwilling to criticize coaches after losses. I don't get that. I mean, man, if Pete Golding coaches a bad game this year, he should hear about it. Look at his contract. What is he getting paid for? That's what the money is for. So I'm like that. I don't agree with college kids thing anymore. They're not college kids. The baseball players are getting more than 99% of you. The baseball players. So I don't want to hear about that anymore. I'm done with the college kids thing. I'm done with the student athletes thing. That's not what the football players are. That's not what the basketball players are. And that's not what the SEC baseball players are. They're not student athletes. They're professional athletes. Time to talk about them and treat them as such. They're adults. They have contracts. They have salaries. They're millionaires, some of them. Yeah. They're not absolved from blame. And they're not absolved from consequences and scrutiny. Just tells you that the rumors down there that LSU is hurting for money might be true. Also, the recruiting narrative is a bad look for them recruiting-wise to leave kids holding the bag on a buyout. I mean, I'm getting really repetitive tonight. It's been a long day. So forgive me for that part of it. But frankly, I think nationally, nobody really cares. Does anybody, I mean, truly, does anybody really care that DeMond Williams had to stay at Washington? The college football universe, the people that actually think with their brains anyway, looked at that like a positive. Player signed a contract. He was getting tampered with, wanted to enter the portal, but couldn't. That was, with the exception of the burnerverse, the same burnerverse, was universally looked at as good. That's good for college football. You've got some kind of structure in place. It's a good thing. Same thing here, to be honest with you. The same thing's happening here. This is a good thing for college football, that there are enforceable contracts out there, that at least teams can get something, that they can get something. I don't know. Again, I talked to an attorney earlier just to kind of figure out, what Ole Miss's steps would be. It would depend on how they would approach it in terms of, what a filing would look like, what a legal process would look like. There's too many unknowns to give real analysis right now about that, apparently, according to my legal correspondent anyway. But it seems pretty straightforward. So we'll see if it actually is pretty straightforward. I do think LSU would be best serving their players to do what was absolutely, without a doubt, promised to them. That would be best. Pay it, let them move on. You move on and be done with it. You're flushed with cash. You have all this money, insignificant amount. Pay it, move on. That doesn't seem to be that crazy of a concept, but what do I know? Not a whole lot, as it turns out. I do know I got to go. I appreciate you guys for being here, as always. Thank you. Remember, we will not be live on Thursday because I will be way, way, way up in North Mississippi. So, yeah, no live on Thursday, but then we'll get ready for SEC Media Days, and that'll be a lot of fun. I'll see you guys on Sunday from Tampa. That's when I'll see you next. I really appreciate you. Talk to you then.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.